Today, we're diving into the works of the ancient historian Josephus for a pretty heavy story. It's about how brotherly love can be completely shattered by suspicion and the chilling, almost supernatural payback that comes after. It's a real tragedy, one that unfolds right in the heart of a kingdom, and it serves as a powerful warning about just how destructive envy can be. Josephus himself basically gives us the theme of the story right here at the start. He's telling us, look, this isn't just about politics and power plays. This is a timeless lesson on how fragile our relationships are when they're faced with the poison of slander and envy. And honestly, it sets the stage perfectly for the downfall of King Aristobulus and his brother Antigonus. So, our story kicks off with a relationship that really should have been unbreakable, right? We're talking about the trust and love between a king and his own brother. But that bond, well, it becomes the main target for some seriously ill-intentioned people lurking in the palace, just waiting for a chance to poison it with lies. King Aristobulus didn't just like his brother. He truly loved and trusted him, so much so that he actually made Antigonus a partner in ruling the kingdom. Now, in a world that's always full of political backstabbing, that kind of alliance was incredibly rare and powerful. It really shows you just how deep their connection was. Okay, so here's where it gets really clever and twisted. The plotters, they use Antigonus's own success against him. See, he has just returned from war, a huge hero, decked out in amazing new armor with all his soldiers celebrating around him. The conspirators see this, and they run straight to the king, who's already sick, and they completely twist the scene. They paint this picture of triumph as a threat, saying, look, he's showing off. This is the first step of a coup. The way they set the trap, it's just brilliant in how cruel it is. The king, he's suspicious now, but he's not totally convinced, so he sets a little test. He sends a message to Antigonus, come see me, but come unarmed. But the queen and her allies get to the messengers first, and they completely flip the script. They tell Antigonus that his brother wants him to come in his fancy new armor because it would cheer him up. It's the perfect lie, because it plays right into that brotherly love. And Antigonus, because he trusts his brother completely, Josephus says he was guided by the good temper of his brother. He doesn't suspect a single thing. I mean, why would he? He thinks he's about to do something nice for his sick brother, show off his new gear. And it's this total innocence, this complete trust, that makes him walk right into the trap. So he goes into this dark, underground passage inside the palace, a place called Stratos Tower. And waiting there are the king's bodyguards, and they have their orders. If Antigonus shows up armed, kill him. So they see him in his armor, and they do exactly what they were told. Antigonus is cut down. His trust is repaid with death. And the plotters, well, their horrible scheme worked perfectly. But hold on, the story does not end there with a simple murder. This is where things take a really strange turn, lifting this from just a political crime to something much deeper, a story about fate and how you just can't escape it. And it's all because of a very bizarre prediction. We get introduced to this guy named Judas, a prophet from the Essene sect, and Josephus makes one thing crystal clear. This guy had a perfect record. He had never, not once, gotten a prediction wrong. So his credibility is rock solid, right before his entire world gets flipped upside down. Because on that exact day, Judas the prophet sees Antigonus walking by the temple, totally alive and well, hours after he was supposed to have been killed according to the prophecy, and the prophet just breaks. He's thrown into total despair, crying out to his followers that truth itself must be dead if his prediction failed. He's so devastated he says he might as well die too. So, what was the problem? Well, it all came down to a simple but fatal mix-up. Judas had predicted Antigonus would die at Stratos Tower, but he was thinking of the famous port city, which was also called Stratos Tower, hundreds of miles away. He had absolutely no idea that there was also a dark passageway inside the palace that went by the exact same name. That little detail is the key to the whole thing. But right then, just as this old prophet is sitting there completely dejected, news arrives. Antigonus is dead. And where was he killed? In the underground passage called Stratos Tower. The prophecy wasn't wrong at all. It was just more specific, more chillingly literal than anyone could have possibly imagined. And in that moment, it becomes clear that some kind of fatal decree was at work here. And now we come to the final act. This is where the consequences of the murder come crashing down on the king. And it happens with a kind of swift, terrible vengeance that honestly seems like it's being guided by an unseen hand. When King Aristobulus finds out the truth, that he was tricked, that he killed his innocent brother for no reason, he is absolutely shattered. His regret is immediate and just all-consuming, and this incredible psychological pain starts to have a very real physical effect on him, causing his illness to get so much worse. The guilt literally starts to tear him apart from the inside. Josephus gives this really gruesome description. He says the king's grief was so intense that his insides were torn to pieces, and he started vomiting huge amounts of blood. His internal torment was becoming external, in the most violent way you can imagine. So a servant is given the job of carrying this basin of blood away. And as he's walking, he slips and falls. Now, that might sound like just a random accident, right? But Josephus is very specific here. He calls it a supernatural providence, which basically means this was no accident. This was an act of God. And this is the moment of divine justice. The servant doesn't just slip anywhere. He slips in the one place he shouldn't have, the exact spot in Stratos Tower where Antigonus was murdered. The king's blood, the murderer's blood, spills out and mixes with the stains of his innocent brother's blood that were still on the floor. It's this horrifying, perfect symmetry, blood answering for blood, on the very same patch of ground. People who see this happen let out this gasp, this cry of horror that's so loud, the dying king hears it from his room. He demands to know what's going on. Of course, his servants are terrified to tell him what happened, but the king, he forces the awful truth out of them. And that revelation, hearing what happened to his own blood, it brings the king to his final, terrible realization. His last words aren't just a confession, they're really the moral of this entire bloody story. With his dying breaths, he just accepts it. He realizes he can't hide from this all-seeing, divine judge. He says that the vengeance for his brother's murder has finally caught up to him. It's a full confession, an admission of guilt right at the very end. And that's it. That confession is his final act. Josephus tells us, the second those words left his lips, he died. His life and his punishment were over. So after all of that, the lies, the murder, the prophecy, the divine payback, how long did King Aristobulus actually get to enjoy the power he killed his own brother for? Just 1 year. Josephus drops that final sobering detail in there like a brutal punchline. It just drives home how fast and how total his downfall really was. So what do we take away from this ancient tragedy? Josephus lays out this incredible story where envy just eats away at love, lies lead directly to murder, and guilt becomes a literal, fatal disease. It forces us to ask a really big question. When we read stories like this, are we just looking at a record of human ambition and all its terrible consequences? Or are we actually seeing a glimpse of some larger divine justice playing out on the stage of history? It's definitely something to think about.